And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tomorrow morning's flying weather looking something like this. IFR, North Gulf Coast, across the Gulf of Alaska, southeastward there to off the south coast of the Panhandle. Marginal VFR over inside waters. Marginal VFR for the Kenai Peninsula. Parts of Kodiak Island, though, especially on the west side, Chillicothe Strait side to the southwest, VFR. Bristol Bay, southern Kuskokwim Valley, VFR into Kamishak Bay. Eastern interior, VFR. IFR here up over the northwest part of the state, here from Norton Bay across the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound area, Kobuk Valley into the portions of the Koyukuk Valley, as well as the Arctic coast, all VFR there. Marginal VFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. For the afternoon, we have some areas of IFR lingering here along the North Gulf Coast, the southern southeast coast, Alaska Peninsula to Unalaska Island, Adak, Atka, Shimiat-2, St. Lawrence Island through the Strait and up along the Arctic coast. VFR increasing here over the interior area. Still some marginal VFR, Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound kind of working in from the east here with the next system pushing into the Gulf there or to the south. And we'll see for Saturday morning, still some marginal VFR, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, maybe the Manuska Valley, definitely Prince William Sound, right along the North Gulf Coast, the Panhandle marginal. Good VFR here in the interior. Until you get to the Brooks Range, North Slope marginal, Arctic coast, IFR, and southern Kodiak Island, Sitkinak there, marginal VFR. Yukon Delta, part of the Kuskokwim Delta, or actually the southwest areas here to Togiak Bay. Marginal VFR, same thing for the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, IFR out to the west. And then for the afternoon, this area of IFR shifts eastward here, almost getting into Adak, probably taking until Saturday evening for that to happen. Some IFR down into the Pribilof Islands, marginal VFR, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, and Nunivak Island, southwest coast here, right into King Salmon, Igigik, looking pretty good. VFR, much in the interior. Saturday, VFR, first day of the weekend, looking really good here. Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula. And not too bad for the North Gulf Coast. Some marginal VFR there from about Cordova to Yakutat, all the way down to Dixon Entrance. IFR holding there over the central eastern Arctic coast. And the Tuvik and Adigan tomorrow passes. Marginal VFR for both passes there. Lake Clark and Merrill, pretty good. VFR, same forecast for rainy. Good VFR flying there. Windy, open, VFR on either approach. Same forecast for Isabel and Mentasta. Tanita, also marginal VFR, but Portage, marginal VFR there. And for Chilkoot and White, both passes, marginal VFR. Freezing levels here at the surface along the North Gulf Coast, down across Kodiak Island, up to Nunivak Island here, and 2,000 feet right across the Panhandle. Icing, look for considerable moderate rime icing, southeast coast up to maybe Cape Yakataga or so, Yakutat area. Icing free here in the interior. Some icing threats here along the southwest coast as well as up over the North Slope. And for the 33,000 foot wind flow chart here, upper level low right over southern Alaska here. Got some northerlies at about 60 knots, but the main jet well to the south, in fact off the map here, kind of reappears here as it blows in toward Vancouver Island. Out to the west, northwest winds 130 to 125 knots right down across the central Aleutians. At 9,000 feet, west becoming northwest winds here, 55 to 70 knots. And then northerlies at about 40 knots here coming from the western Arctic coast, across the Chukchi Sea, turning northerly at about 40 knots. And then increasing here as you drop southward and becoming more northwest, 45 to 50 knots. Pribilof Islands down across the Alaska Peninsula, 45 knot westerlies or west-northwesterlies across Kodiak Island, 30 to 40 knots southwest flow for the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, south winds at about 35 knots here for the southeast coast there, and 50 knots on the southwest side of that low in the Gulf. Westerlies about 30 knots blowing across the Barren Islands, 45 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, 50 knots there blowing into the Pribilof Islands. And then 45 knot northerlies turn easterly, 40 to 45 knots there, keeping the Arctic coast on the windy side. Turbulence-wise, considerable moderate turbulence. Most of the southeast coast there, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, isolated moderate. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast. Prince William Sound to Kodiak Island, isolated moderate turbulence. Then back to the considerable moderate category here for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, as well as St. Matthew Island.